Hey, so I'm here with the wonderful and colorful Kimra Luna. So Kimra, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
And of course, I wanted to get you on to just you know, for you to share your experience because you've got a very eclectic background um, uh, but share your experience with the night of year and possibly like how it's impacted. But don't have to gloss everything over. Just the raw truth of things as well. So before we kick into it, what is your background like? What's the Kimra Luna story?
So yeah, I started off in the online world actually as a health and wellness blogger, and I was able to grow a great following, but it ended up I kind of got burnt out on it, and so I scrapped that and I started running a business where I was selling digital products, teaching people how to brand, how to do Facebook ads, all sorts of kind of techie type of stuff that people needed to learn to
But
grow
you
their
got
online
but you
businesses.
got into that because of your experience in punk rock though too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like in the punk rock world, I was booking concerts for a living. Like I did that straight out of high school. Started booking concerts for a living. Didn't even know that that was a business. So I started doing that straight out of high school, and that was when I really learned like what networking was, what building relationships with people
Yeah.
were. I mean, like the bands were kind of like my clients. Like if you like transferred it into like online kind of world, they were basically my clients, and I was helping them get gigs. And so it was an interesting thing that I did. And even back then, I didn't know what email marketing was. I didn't know how to grow your email list.
Sure.
So I actually would get everybody's phone number who would come into the door, and I would put it in my phone, and I'd put the word punk after their name. And whenever I booked a new concert in my town, I would text message all of them. And I had to do it individually because back
Wow.
then you couldn't mass text.
Yeah.
So that was like my form of list building, which is a little bit different now. Most people use emails for that. But that was my form of list building. And back then we had a MySpace page. But I was never really super, super, super techie until later after I'd already gotten out of that industry and I started my current business. Like
Yeah.
I still was kind of I felt like a person I could barely figure out how to like upload a picture onto Facebook or anything like that. So I was a pretty untechy person until about a few years ago.
So you started doing the health blogging thing, and
Mm-hmm.
then moved out of that. And why would you get into why did you get into health blogging anyway?
Well, I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 8 years. I'm a vegetarian most of my life, and it was just something I was really passionate about. I had a vegan moms Facebook group, and I decided, well, these people, I can blog for them. I can write content for them because I was already spending lots of hours facilitating my group. So I decided to write, recipes and things like because I was already posting them in my group. I figured I might as well have a blog.
Yeah.
So that was when me and my husband made the decision to spend all of our tax return on an iMac so that I could be a blogger. Uh, and
Wow.
we had no clue if my blog would actually make me money, and it did make me a little bit of money here and there, but it wasn't really sustainable. So that's why I scrapped that and decided to teach people all the knowledge I had learned about building my blog and building a website and growing an email list. And it just made more sense for me because I enjoy teaching
Yeah.
so much. I feel I'm a natural teacher, and it was kind of a natural progression into what I'm doing now.
So you started that. So how long ago did you dump the health blog and then you got into kind of teaching people more about the you know audience engagement and building of lists and things?
I scrapped that blog. It was May 2014.
Okay.
So May 2014, that blog was deleted off of the internet. So the blog post don't even exist anymore. Even though there's still a lot of backlinks coming from Pinterest to that website, but the website no longer exists. And I decided I'm doing a complete fresh start. I started my list at zero at that point, and I was like, you know what? I want these people to kind of come on this journey with me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I figure, hey, just share the journey. And so as I was growing my list, I would share like the things that I was doing and what was working for me, what wasn't working for me. And I think a lot of people kind of resonated with that behind the scenesness
Yeah.
of my brand. I've always been pretty open about like, oh yeah, it cost me this much to
Yeah.
hire someone to make this sales page for me, or
Yeah.
and people really like that. They want to see what it really takes,
Yep.
and that has worked pretty well for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I call it like the backstage of your business. You know, it's a lot of people kind of gloss over and tell the like sexy story of that person has. They make it look so easy, and I mean, even like at this point in time, like where we are right now, I'm in the middle of doing a big launch, and I mean, there's tons of balls that are in the air that you can't foresee everything that's going to happen, and some things break and some things don't break. But yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that people really resonate with you too is just the scrappy style. That I mean,
Yeah.
it's scrappy. So cool. So then, where were you at that? Where were you at in your business that when you saw like the 90-day year when it came along that you were like, this looks like something that's going to solve a problem for me?
So in May I started my business, and in August I had my first launch, and I made $62,000 in sales.
Wow.
So my business grew pretty quickly. I'd
Yeah.
only been in business like 3-4 months, and it had already been like I was just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. It grew really fast. And then I did a Black Friday sale in November, and I ended up making $40,000 in sales on Black Friday. So my business was growing very fast,
Yeah.
but I hadn't hired a team yet. I had retired my husband from his job. My husband had quit his job because, well, I was making a lot more than him.
Yeah.
He was a FedEx driver, and people were like, "Oh, that's a good job." It was not. He was making like $2,000 a month. I mean, it was terrible.
Really?
So he quit his job, and so he was helping with my business. But we also had 2 kids.
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, it was a lot of work to build our business by ourselves. So the main reason why I bought 90 Day Years because I knew my business already had like this momentum going, but I needed to know how to outsource and how to hire a team and how to get the right people on board so that I could keep growing my business rather than burn myself out and just
Yeah.
give up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So then you get in, and out of all of the things that we might talk about, or the concepts inside the 90 year and like execution and getting things done, what's been the biggest impact for you?
Well, the biggest thing for me was because at the time when I purchased it, I was literally about to go into my launch. And I launched my program, Be True Brand You. I launch once a year. And so I really wanted to have everything kind of mapped out. And there was, kind of the major part was, what were you doing, what works? And like, okay, that's the thing, but how can you make that better? Like, what are the things to make that better? And so I knew for me, webinars work. That was like all I had really done. So
Yeah.
I was like, that works. But I decided to make my goal to get more people on the webinar
Yeah.
live. So during my launch, I decided to do incentives and like give away prizes and all sorts of stuff to get people to come live.
Sure.
Because I knew that was when I would make the most sales. So it was kind of like just mapping out like I can make things better. That thing didn't work. I can just kind of leave that to the side a little bit and just keep focusing on what's working.
Yep.
And then I can hire a team to do all those other little things that I didn't necessarily need to be doing every single day that were taking away my time from actually writing webinar content and writing course content and things that needed to actually be done rather than checking a bunch of emails all the time and doing customer support and stuff. So it was really just streamlining those things that I needed in my business so I could have kept running.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, you're still, not that you were a one-man show, but you were transitioning out of the one-woman show thing and bringing on people. And at the end of the day, we all only have so much, time available in our day and resources that we need to find ways. And this is the hardest thing for many entrepreneurs, is learning what to cut out, because apparently we like doing so many things. And then, like you kind of hit on it with the webinar, was there are certain activities in any business that are really high impact, high leverage things, and if we can learn to devote more energy to those things, it can have a magnification effect. And that's exactly what happened to you, because you ended up smashing your launch, right?
Yeah, I ended up making $750,000 in sales.
Yeah.
And that was with the help of 90 Day Year. That was like in my first 90 days.
Yeah.
So I took the course, and then I was just like, okay, I need to put all this in action right now because I have this freaking launch and I got to do this, awesome the first time. And the reason why there was so much urgency, I mean, most people probably would have pushed it back and just like, learn the content slowly. Well, I couldn't do that because I had a baby coming.
Yeah.
So I was pregnant this whole time
Yeah.
that I was doing all of this. And so I was like, I have to launch before the baby comes, right?
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, my first 90 days, like I'm just gonna focus on the launch. That's gonna be my first 90-day year section, and yeah, it went very, very, very well.
Well, and but you get to, even the baby thing. I mean, that is the power of a deadline, right? Like you had a hard deadline that if you needed to launch because you weren't going to be able to launch in March or April because it's
Baby would have been there. I would
yeah,
have been too uncomfortable to launch.
yeah,
I mean, I was already uncomfortable enough sitting on the webinars.
yeah,
My office chair was not the most comfy chair for a pregnant woman, but I still did it. And, I was able to make sure that I had all my things in my back end together so that I wasn't worrying about those things. And the awesomest thing was after my launch, I still, kept active with my community and stuff. And then when I had the baby, I was able to take weeks off,
yeah,
and not work on my business at all because
yeah.
I had my VAs, my virtual assistants in place so that I was able to do that and just be with my baby. And I didn't have to just be constantly focusing on my communities and working with people.
Yeah, and the great thing now is you're at a place now. I mean, it's now a year later where we're putting even more systems and foundation in place to just create this real solid base below you so that you can scale things up a lot faster and bigger.
Yeah, my second part of the 90-day year, the second time I went through it was actually to rest. That was my only goal during that section. And then after that, I went on to do one where I ended up hiring Selena Sue, who is my publicity coach, and then my goal was to get more publicity about my story.
Yeah.
So that was like a different type of scaling because it's like I wasn't necessarily hiring a team to do like tasks. It was more getting my word out there so that I can keep growing rather than let it lose the momentum. Because sometimes after having a baby, people's businesses, they lose that momentum because they're so busy with that.
Sure.
And then of course I ended up learning like I definitely have to hire a nanny and even household things need to be delegated out also.
Yeah.
So it was really, really, really great.
Well, before we kind of wrap it up, just one final thing would be, because you get the opportunity to kind of play in lots of different spaces. Who do you think like the 90-day year is really right for? And it could be not even just a specific person, but the type of mindset. Even it could be the type of person it's right for.
Yeah, I think it's really right for people who have a business, but they're so overwhelmed with all the busy work of their business. They're already making sales. They figured it out. They're like, hey, I know how to make sales. I can actually do a funnel and make some sales. But there are people who need to actually, get all their systems in place so that they can have more time.
Yeah.
That's really to me, who I would recommend.
Cool. Yeah, because I mean, one thing that I talk about inside of like the engine that drives a 90-day year, that OPP framework, is that the bonus of going after your goals in that way is what falls out the bottom of it is systems and processes for people. And I mean, I've talked about 5 different stages of business, and in the very beginning phase of starting up, I mean, you've got to market, and offer, and not focus on systems. But if you're implementing this kind of system, the systems are actually coming out of it from the bottom, just from you documenting the way that we have it kind of working inside of it. So no, that's great advice for people. So any final parting words for people, Kimra, before we?
My final parting word is you definitely have to buy 90-day year. It is by far the best online program I've purchased, and I've purchased a lot of them.
You have.
Way more than I care to admit to. So I've purchased a lot of online programs, and it's definitely the best one to teach you how to really get everything in place that you need for your business, and really how to even like audit your business and understand kind of the little nuances and understand your strengths and your weaknesses and what needs to be delegated out and what should stay with you doing it. And so yeah, I definitely highly recommend 90-day year.
Well, and I mean, just your one final point of the fact that you've gone through lots of different programs and been to lots of different workshops and things, is that what I tell people too is because this, and people have come into the groups and shared it, is because this teaches people how to execute. Then what I always encourage people to do, because I say that, like, listen, the 90-day year is a container for you to pour whatever your ambitions are into it, whatever your interest, or whatever your business is, whatever the case is. But now you can go back to those other programs that are, like, they're assets for you, because
Mm-hmm.
there are some great programs that are out there. Now go back and whatever they're teaching, you can pour into this, and now all of a sudden you can really learn how to execute on those things that are in those other programs that people have that you've possibly purchased. So cool.
Exactly. Awesome.
Kimra, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Ciao.